This is the story of a girl who cried a river and drowned the whole world. And while she looks so sad in photographs,
I figure if Star Wars can get away with making a movie out of order, then so can I. No, but what really happened between after I told my friend that I thought I liked my best friend, that night on the phone call she said, you know, you might just be confused. And at that point in time, I thought I was confused too. So after that night, I just sort of said to myself, okay, if I never bring this up again, if I never say anything to myself or anybody else, then it's not true, right? I mean, technically it's not. So in my mind, that's what I thought. And so I never brought it up again for about 1.5 years. That phone call took place in 2009. It was the night of my best friend's graduation after she had already graduated. And I saw her in the beautiful dress. And after that night, I pretty much went back to my life. I had this really serious boyfriend, and we dated for about 2 years. And toward the last year, things happened that made me once again not think about him as much and made me think about girls more. I had to switch rooms because my sister came home, and I would think she'd wonder why I'm making a video and talking to myself to a computer. Well, technically I'm talking to a computer, but she'd probably wonder, why is my sister talking to herself? So, anyway, one of the things that happened that made me realize, okay, this isn't just me thinking I was liking my best friend. This is something real. These are real feelings, and this is something I have to acknowledge. It was around May, and I was working at Build-A-Bear Workshop, and my boss had asked me, she was like, hey, Alexa, is there any way you could work at this other Build-A-Bear store tomorrow? And I thought to myself, well, I'm off tomorrow, and I've never been to any other Build-A-Bears in any other malls, so I figured, why not, you know? She's like, you know, they just really need some help. They're really short-staffed, and they're training all these new kids, so if you could help them out, that'd be great. So I thought, okay, that's fine. I don't mind. So the next day, I went to that Build-A-Bear. And what I expected and what really happened was crazy. It was one of the most surprising moments of my entire life. No, there were no explosions. Although that would be pretty cool. And there were no Michael Bay moments at all. I don't have Michael Bay stuff in my movies, and there was no bomb that went off or anything like that. But a bomb went off in my heart, and that sounds really cheesy, but it's so true. It was the first time in my life I actually had feelings for somebody else besides my best friend back in high school. So what ended up happening was there was this girl that worked there. And I believe it was like her second day on the job, and she hadn't really been trained yet. And so I was training her the whole night, or the whole shift. I had worked, I think, from 10 a.m. I had opened the store, and I think I worked till like 6. And I was basically just training her. Like, I was helping her on the stuffer, and I was helping her sell sounds, and I was teaching her how to use the register, and I was teaching her how to do all these things, and I think she really appreciated it because she could ask me all the questions that she was too intimidated to ask a real boss about. So she was like, hey, how do you do this, and how do you do this? I have no idea how to do all these things. And I was like, okay, I'll show you. And what impressed me was she was so smart. And she picked up on it really fast. For it being her second day, she picked up on all those things really quickly. And I was like, this girl's pretty impressive. And she was really smart, and she had the most sarcastic, smart remarks that, I don't know, I find those people really, really hot. It's kind of strange. Like, that's just, intelligence is a huge factor for me. If I find a girl that's intelligent, witty, and can make sarcastic remarks, I'm like, dude, you're my soulmate. But, so she was really funny, and she could make me laugh, and not a whole lot of people can make me laugh, so I was like, good for you. But, so we ended up just kind of, I was training her the whole day, and I remember at the end of the shift, she was kind of like, hey, can I do you want to text sometime? And I was like, yeah, sure, why not? And so we started texting, and the weird part that kind of made me wonder, I was like, she gave me her number so willingly. She's only known me one day, and I've never had a girl just kind of give me her number and tell me to text her. She was like, text me tonight, and I was like, okay, so I did. I was like, she's pretty cute, and I'm really bored sitting on the couch watching TV. I'll text her, so I did. And, so when I texted her, we had a lot to say to one another. Even though we had only met one day, we had realized we had so much in common. And she was one of those people, for the first time in my life, that I felt like I had a lot in common with, and I felt this major connection with. So basically, after that night we were texting, we texted like all day for 2 weeks in a row. Like, we would just text all day, like from morning till night. Like, we had so much to talk about with one another, and we didn't realize it, but we did, and it just kind of went on. And we also Skyped, and we talked on the phone. I mean, we were just, it felt like in my head we were talking, and I was like, I probably shouldn't be doing this when I have a boyfriend. And I think she felt the same way, which was something that made me feel like this major connection with her as well. I was like, oh, there's the mailman. I see the mailman outside. Maybe I should go check the mail after this. But anyway, off topic. So we just had this major connection, and I remember thinking, this girl's really cool, and she's really funny, and we have a lot to talk about with one another. And so the next time we hung out in person, after we had already hung out, well, actually we hadn't hung out, I saw her at Build-A-Bear, and after that time, I remember we went to this hookah lounge with a bunch of other people. My boyfriend was there, and her boyfriend was there, and there was a bunch of other people there too. Like, we went with this really big group of people, and I just remember thinking how beautiful she looked outside of her uniform. Like, more beautiful. She was already beautiful, but it's really hard to look hot in a Build-A-Bear uniform. Let me tell you, you have to be like one of the prettiest girls in the world to look hot in that uniform. So true. But she did. And she looked really pretty outside of her uniform, and I remember, even though there were all these people there that night, I remember I kind of felt like we were out. This is going to sound really cheesy, but I felt like we were in our own little world. Like, I was looking at her, she was looking at me, and nothing else mattered. Nothing else was going on in our heads except us looking at each other and talking to one another. It was weird. I mean, even though there were all these people around us, we were just talking to each other. And that scared me, because I had a boyfriend, and I never felt this connection with anybody besides my best friend from high school. So that kind of scared me, and I wasn't really sure how to react to that. So did it stop me? No. I still kept talking to her, and from then on we just became like really good friends, and we just had a lot of inside jokes even though we didn't know each other very long, and we could laugh about anything together, and we just got along really well. So there was this one time we hung out by ourselves, which, if you have a crush on a straight girl, don't do that. It's a bad idea. She had told me when we hung out by ourselves that well, first of all, we both made really sarcastic jokes about hooking up all the time. So, like, because I told you that's my humor. I make jokes about that all the time, and so did she. So we got along really well on that factor. Like, I had this car at the time where the roof went up so you could see outside, and she'd always make jokes like, if we make out in your car, we could totally, like, see the skylight while we're making out. And I was like, oh yeah, totally. But we would always make jokes like, let's go make out in the room over there. And she'd be like, okay. Or, we just made jokes like that a lot. And it got to the point where we just became really close, and when we hung out by ourselves, I remember I had given her this Build-A-Bear, because she worked at Build-A-Bear, but she couldn't get the discount yet or something. Her paycheck hadn't come in or something. It was, like, taking forever. And I had given her this Build-A-Bear, and I remember she hugged me really tight, and I loved it. And I remember she kissed me on the cheek twice. A girl never kissed me on the cheek, except for 3rd grade, and I think 5th grade. But that was it. I never kissed a girl on the cheek after that. So I don't think that was normal. But then again, it could have been. Some people really do that, and some girls don't. So you just never know with signals, but at the time, I took those signals as, ooh, I think she likes me. I think she wants me to do something, but I don't know what to do. So, that was pretty dumb. But it was the first girl I really had a crush on besides my friend from high school who was completely straight. But this girl was kind of bi-curious, I could tell, or at least she seemed like she was in the same boat as me, or I thought she was. But things began to progress, and I think after that night she told herself, maybe I'm giving Alexa the wrong signals. So she sort of started to back off a little bit. Like she wasn't texting me as much, and she wasn't talking to me as much, and I was kind of like, what's going on? This is weird. And so, me, being the weird person that I am, I didn't really take those signals, because I think she was starting to send me signals that she didn't want to be more than friends, but I thought she did. So, we didn't talk as much. We were still friends, and we still hung out, kind of. But I remember the last time we hung out, it was pretty awkward, because I asked her, I was like, hey, would you ever be in a relationship with a girl? I took this friendship and relationship way too far, and I know I did. But I was like, hey, would you ever have a relationship with one? And she was like, no. I was like, oh, okay, well, that's great. So that was pretty awkward. But I remember after that night, she was texting me, or I texted her first, and she was like, Alexa, I think you have the wrong idea about our friendship. And I was like, what do you mean? And she's like, my boyfriend and I can see that we think you like me. And I was like, oh crap, she can tell I like her. I mean, this is not good. This has never happened to me before. So I denied, and I was like, no, I don't. And she's like, I think you do. I think you do like me. And I was like, okay, I do. I do like you. I can't lie. I do like you. And she's like, well, I don't like you that way. I like you as a friend. And I was like, yeah, that was not good. I was like, oh. I was pretty hurt, but it made me realize this isn't okay, because all of this is going on while I have a boyfriend. All this drama with this girl is happening while I have a boyfriend. After that day, I asked myself, when's the last time I had this much pain with my boyfriend? When's the last time my boyfriend made me feel this pain? I liked the pain I was feeling, which was kind of weird because it felt real. Even though it hurt, it felt real. For the first time in my life, I felt real pain. Besides the fact of my best friend moving up north and being with a guy and getting married to him. That was the second time in my life I really felt pain, and I was like, okay, this can't go on any longer. So I had broken up with my boyfriend, which was one of the hardest things I had to do because we were very close, but I knew what I was feeling wasn't fair to him. So after my friendship kind of crumbled with this girl, which kind of bites because she was really cool, and I feel really bad about this now looking back, but because I couldn't read her signals at the time. But after that, I had told my boyfriend at the time, I said, you know, I think I'm a lesbian, or at least I think I like girls. And he was like, I think I know that. And I was like, awesome. He's like, well, I mean, I didn't know for sure. It's just that you always seemed like, you just didn't seem like you were all there. Especially when we were being physical, you just didn't seem like you really wanted to be. And you just didn't seem into it. And I was like, I guess I wasn't. I mean, you know, he's like, you were into it, but you weren't. And I was like, that's great. So it was really hard, but he was the first person I told. Other than that girl on the phone that one night from the library. But he was the first person I told in person. And I was crying, and it was really dramatic. He took it so well, and I really respect him for that. And he was really amazing about it, but he took it so well. And he just said, you know, you just have to explore and live your life and be proud of who you are and realize that, you know, who cares if you are gay? You're a great person. And I remember asking him, you know, am I going to go to hell? is something bad gonna happen to me? Are all my friends gonna leave me? Are my parents gonna kick me out? Like, I was bawling because this was the hardest thing I ever had to do. But he was the first person I told, and he was just like, you know, you just gotta live your life and see what happens. But I'll always be your friend, and your parents will always love you, and you're an amazing person. And you know, if this happens to you, it's not fair to you because you really are a good person. And I was like, well, thank you. You know, he's like, that's just not fair if this happens to you. And I was like, yeah, but I punished myself for it a lot at the time. But then time progressed, and I started to date girls, and I started to be okay with myself. And I realized, you know, I'm so much happier this way because I'm feeling what I really feel, and I'm upfront with who I really am. And there's nothing wrong with that. And there's nothing wrong with being yourself. That's who you're supposed to be, right? And I just realized after that day, this is okay. This is completely 100% good. So after that day, I had progressed, and I had experimented, and I started to date girls, and everything worked out for the best. So, like I said in the past videos, I hope that's true for you too. And this was the missing piece of the puzzle, so I hope you all enjoyed.